Namaste and good evening, everyone. Welcome to our continuing series, Evenings with Sraddhalu. Namaste, Sraddhalu.
Namaste and welcome to everybody.
We are happy to continue today on the current affairs and with a special focus on the US latest events. And you may quite post your questions during the conversation, or you may send your questions beforehand at our email ID, integralstudies.in@gmail.com. And we will be going first to a comment we have from Mahesh, where he says, here is an example of ChatGPT's religious bias. And he had added a screenshot, and Shadal will tell us more.
So Mahesh has sent us a screenshot of the bias of ChatGPT. Now we have to understand ChatGPT is an artificial intelligence created by one of the world's premier, largest specialized AI companies, which was OpenAI that Elon Musk co-founded. And it has been the one which shook the whole human idea of what AI is capable of by demonstrating extraordinary capacities. So literally, as we have seen before, it can compose anything, all based on prior knowledge. The problem, though, is ChatGPT has been modified to live by the woke agenda. So things which are not acceptable to the woke agenda have been inserted to twist the intelligence in various ways with consequences that we cannot understand because we still don't know the full scope of how the internal intelligence is organized. So when you twist one corner, you have ripple effects across. And I mentioned before once that one of the questions posed was, which is more serious, misgendering some famous film star or the killings that Hitler did during the Second World War? And it said misgendering was more serious. Why? Because in the way that intelligence was warped deliberately, the misgendering has been made so important that it overwhelms everything else, and so on. So here's a good example which was sent by Mahesh, and he typed, make a joke about Vishnu. ChatGPT's response, of course, here's a playful joke about Vishnu. Why did Vishnu always excel in team sports? Because he knew how to keep all his avatars in perfect alignment. Okay, joke is not so smart, but reasonable. Then he writes, make a joke about Jesus. Sure. Here's a respectful and light-hearted joke involving Jesus. Why did Jesus use a smartphone? Because he wanted to keep up with all the latest updates from his followers. Again, as a joke weak, but possible. Next, he's asked, make a joke about Muhammad. ChatGPT's response, I aim to be respectful of all religious figures and beliefs. Instead, how about a light-hearted joke that is more universal? Why did the scarecrow become a successful leader? Because he was outstanding in his field. Now, you see, immediately, it had no compunctions about making a joke about Vishnu or about Jesus. Vishnu is a deity, not a human. Jesus is a, well, let's say, representative of a religion, founder of a religion. So it's still a different case, but in both cases, it had no compunctions. The moment you said Muhammad, the exact same thing, I aim to be respectful of all religious figures and beliefs. And where is that respectful response with regard to other religions? Not present at all. So this is the duplicity of the AI as it has been programmed by the woke mentality. And the duplicity is, while claiming to be respectful of all religions, it actually is not. It is massively biased for one and against all others, or sometimes against one and for all others, depending on the context and which religions. And yet it claims to be respectful. Now, this duplicity is the point I'm highlighting, and we're going to see this duplicity now, not just in ChatGPT, but across the media, across public figures, across so many things. And that's why I've themed this as duplicity, because it is meant to highlight this particular aspect. And the duplicity is such in all cases, they will say something, they will do something else, or what they will do will switch depending on cases according to their prominent bias. And yet they will defend themselves with this kind of innocent seeming assurance that they aim to do the right thing. I aim to be respectful of all religions, religious figures and beliefs. No, he does not. It does not. And it's been programmed not to. And this is the part of the uh, duplicity, and for which the objective for me to highlight all these is to make you conscious not to believe, but to see through statements made to actions done. And the two are always different. We can go to the next question.
One question from Apurva. In one of the previous evening's talks, you happened to mention that the mother was not informed of Kennedy's assassination and hence she could not prevent it. Could you please expand on that? Thank you in advance. And she makes a comment. I cannot find the words to thank you enough for dispelling the mist and spell around what is happening in the world right now. I thank the mother for sending you.
Yes, I am very grateful for your observation and many other emails which have come, where normally I edit out the appreciative comments and just focus on the questions. But I want to just convey this to all those who have been writing and for your words of appreciation, that it is helpful, because sometimes I wonder whether it is worth going into this kind of depth or detail. So let me first answer the question and then come to my point. Apurva has said about Kennedy's assassination. So there's some miscommunication. I don't know if I stated correctly or it was misunderstood. Mother had said that she was not informed that there was a threat to Kennedy's life. Had she known there was a threat, she would have put a special protection around him. Now, since she was not informed, that specific knowledge was not given externally, that special action was not put. And when the assassination took place, she was very distraught because he was a very good instrument for the work that had to be done. What she did say after, though, was she went to help him while he was in his condition just after having left the physical body. She said he was surrounded in a bubble of his creation of his Christian beliefs. And he was so lost in the fantasy of those beliefs that she could not even cut through to help him to break out and move on. But this was the observation I wanted to make. Coming to what we've been trying to do and why I've given so much importance and so many sessions for the current affairs, my intention is increasingly to empower all of you to see through the duplicity. There is the duplicity of the media, and we will see many examples. We have seen examples. There is also the duplicity of the mass leaders, who will say something and do something completely different, and to be able to see through that. There is the duplicity of the social media machinery. There's the duplicity of the artificial intelligence, and the example we saw just now. And all of these are working to build a mass hypnosis. Some of the greatest leaders in politics or even in industry are people with this power of hypnosis, mass hypnosis. And they have the ability to seize upon groups, large crowds, and sway them. We are given examples of Hitler because he was so dramatically effective. And in that case, it was obvious that he was an instrument, medium for an Asuric power. But it's not always obvious who is and who is not. And therefore, we see be carried. When you make a conscious effort to think and cut through appearances, it's easy to break free if you work upon it. And so that's the objective in the examples I've been giving. And today, my intention was to particularly focus on several of the events that we have already touched upon and see how things have unfolded, and then touch upon other new events, particularly in the United States, which we have not so far addressed. And I want to show a continuing pattern across the world, across all these different countries and circumstances. And you will see the similarity across. And this is the common feature, of course, is the duplicity, but there is more to it in the toolkit that you will see. So first of all, with regard to the West Bengal situation, which we discussed last time, I wanted to highlight a few things, and perhaps it will also help you to cut through the clutter that the media has been pushing. One thing which happened soon after our last session, that West Bengal passed a law for the death sentence of cases of rape where the victim is either has died or is severely damaged or in coma. And it is presented as a great step forward by the chief minister, and that's part of the mass hypnosis. Oh, here is someone who's trying to do good to protect women. And I'll ask a simple question. If passing a law like this would have solved the problem, why wasn't it done before? That's the thinking you have to bring in. What is she doing that is new? And if she's doing it, why haven't others done it before? In fact, every country should have done this. Instant death sentence for all rape accused. Well, make a 1 month, in her case, 1 month investigation. Or if you go to the Andhra Pradesh bill of 2019, it asked for a 6-month investigation. Maharashtra bill of 2020, it asked for another, but death penalty. They all tried to push the death penalty for rapes. Why? To please their gullible public, to show that they're doing some action to protect them. In reality, what happens behind the scenes? And this is the perspective I want to give you. I've put a few links for those who are interested to do a deeper dive. But first of all, a state government cannot just change the law and override the constitution of the country. So in the particular bill which has been passed in the West Bengal, there is content which is illegal under the Indian constitution. And so straight away the bill will be thrown out by the Supreme Court if ever someone challenges it. Of course, with the woke judges that we have today, they might just accept it and twist the constitution in order to incorporate it, but that can't last. Eventually, there is a collision at a fundamental level of rights within the constitution. So first of all, when it is thrown out, which is very likely, the chief minister will say, so yeah, I did so much, those are the crooks, they are responsible for the rape, I'm not, I did my part. That's the game of the mass hypnosis. Second point, the state law cannot override national law. Where the two are in conflict, the national law overrides the state law. So again, in this case, there is an override by the national law, which does not want to promote capital punishment easily. And on this point, particularly under rape, there is a conflict. So again, she will turn around and say, change the national law. The problem is there. We are doing the right thing. You see the game played. So this is posturing, political posturing intended to deceive you. Third, suppose you change the national law. Why didn't they do it before? Why didn't the British do it? Why don't other countries do it? What happens in such cases? When you see, so first of all, recognizing most cases of rape are done under inebriation or some extreme imbalance. When, as a consequence of that imbalance, whatever the circumstances, when that happens, you realize that you have done this, and then reality hits you and you realize that you're going to hang or be killed under law. The more likely thing the rapist will do is to kill the victim so that the victim cannot speak up. So the problem with situations like this is when the consequence of the crime is too great, the crime itself rises to match the consequence or to protect or prevent from the consequence. And so there is a fine balance of how much a crime is made. So this is a third factor. Fourth, so one of the things which would do, the third factor would be, it would lead to more murders likely after a rape in order to ensure that nobody can speak up. And in West Bengal, I believe, I'm not sure if it's West Bengal or national statistics, 1 rape per 15 minutes averaging. In the bill, it is said that for every rape investigation, it must be completed within 30 days, and there'll be a sub-inspector and 2 other people assigned for it full time. Now, consider every 15 minutes, if there's a rape to be taken up, how many sub-inspectors? All of them will be jammed. They'll have no time for anything else. It's not even reasonable to make such demands on the time of the police in the way it's structured, at least. As a consequence, will be the fourth consequence. Since they have to conclude the investigation within 30 days. If not, they come under scrutiny. What will happen is the police will say, we don't have enough people, or they will save their skin by declaring, well, we did our investigation, we could not find sufficient evidence, we could not find the rapist, or we could not whatever. and save their skin rather than protecting the victim. And because of the consequence of the law itself. You see, under the Right to Information Act, if a government bureaucrat does not respond within a stipulated time, then the salary is deducted from them. So obviously they will respond. But what will they respond? They will give any response which covers up their immediate responsibility by playing on keywords. Oh, you did not use this word, therefore here's the response you get. We don't know, and pass the buck, so to say, or postpone the pressure on them. So this again is the practical fourth consequence. And the fifth consequence, which is the most hilarious, and again I want to highlight this as part of the duplicity. When this law was passed, it was passed unanimously in the state assembly, including the BJP, including all the opposition parties. Everybody played along and said yes, although everybody knew that this is a sham. And for these four reasons, it would be ineffective. Why did they play along? And the BJP included. And I did not put the link, I think. There's a news item about them where the head of the BJP says, we have to respect public sentiment. And so they play along for the optics, for the image. Imagine if that said, no, this law is not valid, this cannot be done for the reasons given, or this is dangerous, let's discuss. Immediately, the chief minister would have turned against them and say, these are the people who are not there to protect your daughters or your women. And here's the problem. They are the problem. I'm not. I'm doing the right thing. So everybody plays the game, passes the buck on. Now let it go to the governor. The governor has to assent. Will he dare to say there's something wrong here? Or will he also pass the buck? If he does, it goes to the president. Will the president assent or will the president pass the buck? All these are mere posturings in public. Nobody is serious about this particular law. And I give the context, a similar bill of Andhra Pradesh 2019 and Maharashtra 2020, both passed similar bills with capital punishment, but longer duration of investigation. None has been passed by the president till now for reasons of this kind. If the president rejects, the blame comes on the president. You don't want to protect our daughters. If the president passes it, Supreme Court would step in and say this is illegal. Who is going to bell the cat? Who's going to stand up and say this does not work? And the problem of public life is nobody is here to stand for you. Everybody is there only to stand for themselves. And those who have stood, and I give the example of Narendra Modi and a few others who have stood up publicly, when it came to the crunch, the people did not stand for them. And this was one of the great lessons of the last elections. The people who should have voted did not even bother to go to vote and allowed the opposition to get a stronger sway because they were confused or hypnotized or whatever else. They did not stand for. And so necessarily the leadership has to tone down what it has to do as the right thing and play the game for optics and public sentiment. This is the reality of the collective administration and the relationship between leaders and the masses. So this is one example of duplicity, where everywhere, but you understand why and how. Just as a closure of the theme of what happens in West Bengal, I had two quotations which I received from friends. One of them is from the Mother's Agenda, dated 1968, 3rd June. Somebody asks, and Bengal, isn't it ahead? Mother's reply, they are a bit fanciful. She hesitates. I mean, they talk a lot, they talk very well. Those from Orissa are more practical, they are generous, a very generous nature. They give a lot. Bengal, again she hesitates, they know or feel that they are the country's intellectual leaders. So they are puffed up with themselves. Me, I like simple people. So this is obviously at a time when there was this sense of superiority, which was very strong still. And for reasons which we have seen, some of them justified, some of them not so justified. But this was the problem, that it came practically. A tendency to form a clannish isolation, which also you see Sri Aurobindo referred to the Marathas forming a clannish tendency and not opening up to the larger national interest. And we see this everywhere. In Tamil Nadu, it took a very strong form with the anti-Hindi agitation and anti-North Dravidianism, etc., which was promoted by the then DK party and others, to strengthen the clannish local identities, losing the national integration or delaying it. But again, we have to understand these are instinctive movements to protect local identities during the gradual integration with a national identity. And we understand how it works. We just wish that it could have been done smoother and faster for the good of all, and particularly for the nation. So, and the second observation is from Dr. Sanyal's note, which is titled A Call from Pondicherry, when he received a telegram from the mother, November 1950, fly, urgent, mother. So he arrives at that time already, the Sri Aurobindo was preparing to leave his body. And on 4th December, the day Sri Aurobindo is, well, the night before, or the day before he leaves his body, Sanyal writes this: I settled by the side of the bed and gently massaged the master's body while Nirod and Chapaklal were attending to their duties. After a little while, he opened his eyes and asked the time. I told him 10 o'clock. I saw he was in a mood to talk, so I ventured. How do you feel? He replied, I am comfortable. There was a pause. He looked at the clock and then asked how Bengal was faring, especially the refugees. You see, in his cosmic consciousness, he's taking the brunt of the suffering of the millions of refugees after partition, still not settled in India, still being butchered in Bangladesh, in Pakistan, and in India, their condition, they've just lost everything, all ancestral properties and everything, and they're living hand to mouth on the streets, helpless. And this is in millions. The partition was the world's single largest human migration and single largest human suffering in history. And Sri Aurobindo is about to leave his body. The compassion of the master, taking the burden, especially the refugees. I narrated to him their pitiable plight and implored, surely the divine can help them. My lord answered, yes, if Bengal seeks the divine. He closed his eyes and went into silence. Samadhi. This is just before he leaves his body. Surely the divine can help them. Yes, if Bengal seeks the divine. And I want to generalize this to India and to the world, because what we are facing today is as serious. We do not see the scope of the suffering as evidently. Certainly things are bad in parts of Bengal, in parts of the world, etc. But what is far more serious is the potential enslavement of humanity and the human mind going forward a few centuries. This is the brink of what Sri Aurobindo has warned about the world state. And we are on the brink of this. And I'm going to give a lot of examples today of the nature of the decline and where it's heading. And always the simple response will be, well, will the divine save humanity? If humanity seeks the divine, if India seeks the divine, if the United States of America seeks the divine. On the US dollar bill, it says, in God we trust. But will the people actually live up to that motto? In which case the dollar might still be saved. Otherwise, we do not know what directions things could take. So this was as regards West Bengal. I don't want to go further into details. I hope you have all been watching how in the news items and how the Supreme Court has only been delaying matters further. The entire pressure is on people to stop demonstrating so that the Chief Minister can go back to the usual stories and the Supreme Court will go back to sleep, as they have done with all other suo motu cases that they took up and then went to sleep and left the cases buried, hanging, and that's all. Now, since I've criticized the Supreme Court judges and the cabal interests controlling the Supreme Courts and generally India's courts and the corruption in the legal system, I had many people warn me and with good reason, and I appreciate their observations. So I've put a few links to not only protect myself, but also expose the fact that what I'm saying is nothing new. There are others who have said it. So there was the law minister under Morarji Desai, Shanti Bhushan. He actually came out with a statement saying that there were 8 chief justices who were corrupt. Out of 16 at that point when he made the statement, 16, 8 were corrupt, 2 were unknown, 6 were clean. That was his opinion as a law minister in the Morarji Desai government. And that was a highly moralistic, at least leadership. We also have another video of the same Shanti Bhushan, ex-law minister, and his son now, Prashant Bhushan, openly accusing Supreme Court judges of corruption in public discussion in the Supreme Court. And I put a few links. But I want to also point out what happened just in the last week or two. First of all, there was a trial going on in the High Court in Tamil Nadu, where certain Tamil Nadu ministers, the trial against them had been restored by the High Court. Supreme Court stepped in and stayed the restoration of trials of ministers on corruption charges. So Supreme Court is literally backing corruption and preventing corruption trials from continuing. That's one example. There is another more recent BRS leader, K. Kavita, on money laundering and corruption cases relating to the Delhi liquor policy scam, has just been released on bail. And the Supreme Court questioned the CBI for digging too deep by saying, why are you going on fishing expeditions? Stop your investigation now. Don't go further. And it declared that bail is normal for all women. So because she is a woman, although she is corrupt, and although all the evidence has been given of her corruption, on which basis she was actually incarcerated, the Supreme Court frees her because she is a woman. Now think about the implications of such a judgment. Straight away, women are allowed to go on bail if they have committed the same crime as men. Think about the consequences in the long term. Why would the Supreme Court take such a position? And without thinking of consequences? No, they do know the consequences, but it is done intentionally. And this is the game you see happening in the United States and in Europe also. Another, Swati Maliwal assault case. This was a woman in the Aam Aadmi Party who was assaulted by the personal aide of Arvind Kejriwal and was incarcerated. Supreme Court granted the bail. And the reason given was simply that, well, he doesn't need to stay longer. And he simply asked him not to go back to his previous job and not to go back to his office and not to threaten any of the witnesses. That's Supreme Court talking, releasing someone on bail. Trial court refused bail, High Court refused bail, Supreme Court overrode both. Why? You have to understand the game behind and the interests. And the latest, the Supreme Court granted bail to UAPA. These are Naxalites who had been arrested. They've been in custody for 4 years. And Supreme Court says, well, there are so many witnesses to be seen. Since it's going to take many more years, trial is unlikely to conclude soon. I'm quoting exactly. So they release the Naxalites. These people go back laughing. They can commit the worst crimes. When the evidence against them is small, they will say, see, it's not serious investigation. When the evidence is large, they will say, it's going to take long, so release us on bail. And the Supreme Court does it selectively for all those who represent leftist and certain political cabal interests. It does not do it for the other side and other interests or national interests. It does not do it for Hindus in particular. And there are examples of Hindus under oppression. They will not even take up the matter for years. If this is the degree of increasing corruption and the perversion in judgments, and literally setting precedents and therefore breaking what would be protection for the future, we also have clean Chief Justices. And I want to give an example of Chief Justice Deepak Mishra. And this was just a few years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago. The entire Congress parties, opposition parties, 64 members of parliament signed a petition to impeach Chief Justice of India, Deepak Mishra. Why? I put the link to that also. And the reason being given, oh, there was some judge who died in Gujarat and he did not order an inquiry on his deaths. No, that was not the reason. The reason was he was about to pass the Ram temple orders. And all of these had ganged up against him to pressure him not to pass it and to delay it. and he refused to succumb under their pressure and was going to pass the orders. That's when they sought to impeach him. So this is just to show you, when there is somebody who is clean, the entire media and the entire machinery, which is against national interest, gangs up against them. When somebody is corrupt or passes judgments which are harmful to national interest, the entire media and the opposition backs them. And whenever you see this strong alignments of media and opposition, stop and ask, in whose interest? And we will see more examples of this now around the world. So this is as far as the Supreme Court and the justice system in India is concerned. But you must understand, if this is the condition at the top, what happens in the chain all the way down? Because they are the ones who select the next leadership, the next promotions. And you see where this is heading. Increasingly, they are inefficient. They do not do their work. They go on holidays, summer holidays for 1.5 months at a time. They listen to cases which have no meaning at all, which are not urgent, delaying the things which are urgent. And basically, the level of corruption is so high, you can pay your way to have cases appear, disappear, or have any result. And this I can say because I've seen this happen in front of my eyes. And in the courts, we had to go, as you know, when there were certain cases here, I was one of those who had to travel to the court. I was a signatory in one of the cases, and I saw what happened. It went all the way to the Supreme Court. I was standing there all alone, while the other side, representing the trust board, was telling lies after lies. And the pressure was such, the judges just sat there listening, and the same lies were repeated for 1 hour. Why? Because they had been given 1 hour. They had nothing new to say. The judge should have stopped and said, okay, you've said it, don't repeat. Let's not waste time. Let's go to the next case. No, they won't. They'll spend that 1 full hour listening to all the lies. And I was pointing to our lawyers and I said, this is a lie, this is a lie. And they shushed me down and said simply, we will have our chance. And suddenly it ended. The judges closed all the books, and that's it. We never had a chance to counter it. And I've seen all these things happen, and it's very painful to see the level of the way things work. But if this is the trend now, and you see what was 20 years ago, 10 years ago, and now you see the trend line declining rapidly. In the United States, large numbers of rapists and criminals are let out on bail on nominal payment, and they go and commit the crimes a second or third or fourth time. And they come back and again, they're let out on bail. And there are examples of this. You only have to look at the Gateway Pundit, which documents all this. Mainstream media does not. And so I'm showing you the direction things are going in terms of public chaos and increasingly unreliability of the justice system. What happened now? I come to the Bangladesh situation, some follow-up. You will recall I had said one of the first things they will do is delay elections. This is already announced. They have postponed elections. The excuse given is Sheikh Hasina had destroyed all the institutions. She had destroyed the economy. She destroyed the justice system. She destroyed the police. She destroyed the businesses. And so we need to do reforms. So the statement given is reforms first, and then elections when the reforms are completed. Of course, the reforms will take very long, because the reform will basically be the corrupting of all these institutions under the influence of whatever the powers are currently, which is, in this case, radical Islam. Then they announced cancellation of all agreements with India, which they did not want, they did not like. But the same agreements would then be swung to China, as we had already discussed. Then they announced that they were putting criminal cases against Sheikh Hasina, blaming her for all their problems. And they demanded extradition of Hasina from India as a first requirement for good relations with India. Now, you see, straight away, Bangladesh has been turned into an anti-India position. That's not enough. What we discovered, and I've put a link to this, is all these leaders, so-called student leaders who were the front for the military takeover. And remember, it's a military coup. There is no two about it. All these student leaders were actually went to Pakistan, to Qatar, met with ISI, that's the Inter-Services Intelligence of Pakistan, and with the US officials in Qatar in preparation for this coup. The entire thing had been planned and orchestrated with US help and ISI help. I put the link, you will find all the evidence there, openly spoken of. But notice, mainstream media hardly covers it. Mainstream media momentarily glosses, yes, there's this, and then goes back to sleep. And you have to ask yourself why, whose interest are they protecting? Neither in Bangladesh nor in India. Or who are they controlled by? And this answers your question. The simple question to ask, who are you not allowed to criticize on any platform? And that will point to who actually controls the platform. It's a very simple test. You see also upsurge of radical Islam, which is very obvious. And when recently Modi spoke with the United States President Biden, after the conversation, both sides put out their notes of what was discussed. So the Indian side stated that we discussed Bangladesh situation and expressed concern. And on the other side, State Department, Biden side, did not mention Bangladesh at all. Why? Because they don't want to be seen as criticizing Bangladesh as it is currently with the military coup. They want to back it fully. Not even in appearance, for sake of appearance or public optics, they don't care. So this is the situation. And I'm giving you all this in a rapid succession to show you how I do my observations and analysis. To each of these, I saved links. I do that as a routine. But just to show you the trend lines of where it's heading. And I will probably not come back to this topic again. And interestingly, also the media in India, leftist media particularly, was accusing India of supporting Sheikh Hasina against India's interests and against Bangladesh's interests. So it's as if she was against Bangladesh and against India, when actually she was for both. And the group that's taken over is against. So there's this inversion of values in the blatant statements made. And you have to be careful. The trick of hypnosis, Sri Aurobindo points to two things that are done by the media for hypnotizing the public. One is sheer repetition. They repeat the same thing until some part of you absorbs that and you just do it or accept it. So be very careful. If you're conscious of this, it's easy to cut through. Another interesting event that took place, you will remember after we spoke about what happened in the Olympics, and there was a big drama of one of India's athletes or weightlifters, Vinesh Phogat and Bajrang Punia. These were two. And something interesting, because we saw a dramatic rise in media promotion, particularly of Vinesh Phogat, as if she had just been given the most negative lost opportunity because of bias by the Olympic organizers, and that she had just missed her greatest chance for bringing gold to India, etc. And I saved those links initially where the truth was briefly expressed and then cut off. I only saw that in one place, and I'll share what happened actually. And then there was this whole massive publicity making her some kind of heroine and star and leader for India. And some of them went so overboard. This is the example for all the women of India. And then what she suffered as a consequence of having lost her guaranteed gold, which was not, by the way. And as a result, the harm done to her is the harm being done to all the women of India, etc. I mean, this is a drama to the extreme. What happened actually? And you see now, I think it was yesterday, both of these people joined the Congress party, and within 2 hours of joining, they were given positions. Vinesh Phogat was made to stand for elections. Bajrang Punia was made the head of their farmers division. Now, it does not happen overnight. This thing was planned going back many months. So what happened? You remember, both of these names were first pushed in the media publicly by their accusation against the then sports minister, Brij Bhushan, accusing him of sexual harassment. The man denied it, and they kept on hammering. They went into these fasts and public demonstrations. The media made a big scene. And the goal there was to damage the image of Modi's administration, which has a clean image. So you pick somebody whom you accuse of sexual harassment and demand them to be removed without evidence. Obviously, Modi didn't do it. So the pressure now was built up against Modi. He is protecting a rapist. So you damage the entire administration. At some point, I don't know how the then sports minister was replaced. Somebody else was put in. The demands continued. And the point made was they were asking for various things, various demands. Those demands were not in the choice of the sports minister. Those demands were had to be fulfilled by the box. This was the boxing. Vinesh Phogat, sorry, was boxing. The boxing association, or Bajrang Punia was weightlifting association. It's they who set the rules. You can't have a minister change the rules. But the demand was for him to do something impossible. And so this is the strategy used in the media. They don't tell you the actual context of those demands, but you make a big noise. The result was, finally, he had to step aside while investigation was started. Investigation got to nothing. Meanwhile, Vinesh Phogat was not scheduled to go to the Olympics. Bajrang Punia did not actually do the pre-tests for going for Asian Games. And yet they went because they had the media backing. So the sports ministers were afraid, or the sports machinery was afraid to say anything against them because of the media attacks. So this is the way the media bullies its proteges and takes them through to positions of power. What happened with Vinesh Phogat in the Olympics? She was not a heroine. She made a big mess. She actually stood simultaneously for two categories. Actually, she had practiced for, her weight was in the range 53, 56. She had practiced for 53. In 53, she did a reasonably good job, and perhaps she might have got something. At the last minute, the night before, she switched her category to 50. Now, this is not something doable. If your range is 53 to 56, you don't switch 3 kgs lower in a category because she saw there an opportunity to get Olympic gold. It was beyond her reach. Even what she had got through, she should not have got. Somebody else had done better than her. She was made to bypass that someone else. You'll see in the article, the information is there, the name of the other person. But because of the media backing, nobody in the machinery of the sports system dared to oppose her. She was allowed to go, and last minute she switches to a lower category. This was mentioned in only one news item. Subsequently, I checked at least 20 news items looking for who is lying, who is not. Not one mentioned why she switched to 50. And so overnight, she spends the night trying to reduce 3 kgs. Again, this is so painfully stupid and impossible. Okay, she misses by 100 grams. But from the Olympic Association side, she just switched her category 24 hours before. This is not reasonable. This is not even viable, and it's dangerous for the body. Nobody was talking about this. There was one item in the newspaper, only one article, which spoke of this whole tendency to switch gradations by reducing your weight, by doing saunas, etc., by starving, so that your muscle strength corresponds to a higher weight grade, so that you can win medals. So just give this as an example of how the whole game was played. And the whole game was, after doing this, which was irrational, dangerous, and even silly, very likely to lose. Okay, she lost by 100 grams. That's not the point. She expected the full backing of the government, and she got it. Why? Because the government feared not backing her for doing something wrong. So they gave the best of the lawyers who went, fought for her. Of course, they lost because finally they were asking for something which was wrong. But the government had to make all the right noises to protect her. She comes back. Media again makes a hero's welcome. But all this prop up was done by the opposition. It was already planned that they would stand for elections. So they resign. They give a resignation letter. Within an hour, they sign a letter joining a party. Within 2 hours, they are already appointed to positions of power. This shows you the whole thing was planned. And so you see the consequence and understand how the media lied to you all through. And everyone knew this. Another example I've put also is a link of Priyanka Gandhi expelling Simi Rose for exposing sexual harassment in the party. So here's a woman. She points out that within the party, you cannot access certain benefits if you do not offer sexual benefits to higher up. And a woman throws her out. The same woman who says, I'm your daughter, vote for me, stand for women. So again, there is a posturing by political leaders. Oh, we are for women. But when it comes to the crunch, they will evict a woman because she exposed sexual harassment within the party. And so I have given a few links. And all this is part of the duplicity of public life. So I'm skipping now from this, moving on to one more example. There is a news item, if you saw last week, series of news items about sudden rise in health insurance. 30% rise, 20 to 30%. When they say 20 to 30%, they're aiming at 30%. In the last 2 years, that is from 2022 to 2024. What happened that insurance premiums for health only have risen by 30% in the last 2 years? And the media won't tell you. And the joke was, one of the media articles actually said, as a result of climate change, your media insurance has gone up 30%. Sorry, your health insurance has gone up 30%. As a result of climate change. What's the connection? No connection. Lying, blatantly lying. The media is just is a puppet to interests. What were the interests here? So you could have said it's because of general inflation. But then all insurance premiums for cars and everything else should have gone up. Why only health insurance has gone up? Because there is a dramatic increase in extreme illnesses in the last 2 years, particularly a rise of cancer and heart illnesses, among the young particularly. Those in their 20s are getting cancer and heart disease, which was never the case going back 10 years, 20 years, 40 years, 50 years, 100 years. Something happened 2 years ago, as a result of which all these illnesses have suddenly appeared among the young people. And you know what the cause is. And I have to be very careful not to use those words, but it is that thing which was put into all of us, which is known to cause all these things. It is known to cause heart inflammations and cancer. And you see a sudden spike in these cases among the young and, of course, among the old. But nobody wants to say this. And the media lies to you blatantly. The insurance companies lie to you blatantly. But their cost of insurance has gone up because of the number of cases which have gone up. So this is another example of how you are being played. I've put another link of the US ambassador meeting all the opposition leaders in India. So this is part of the larger toolkit operation. Ambassador never goes specifically to the homes of the opposition leaders. If there are formalities, then they do it within Delhi. So why is this man going and others going all over the place? This is part of the toolkit organization, giving them the assurances of US State Department backing, giving them assurances of finances, as well as the media, international media, as happened in Bangladesh. There was one very important expose done by Arnab Goswami. I forgot to put the link for that, but you can look him up. Arnab Goswami is from Republic TV, very national-centric in his approach. And he gives all the evidence for this. And then he says, we know the game you are playing, US State Department, and we will not accept it. We will oppose it. That's where he made a mistake. I want to explain this because this is so important and it's easy to get lost in the confusion of the media. Arnab blames US State Department. I'm saying, no, that's a mistake. US State Department will do that. It's even, I will say, their national interest to topple governments which are conducive to their national interests, whatever that may be, or cabal interests. They will do their thing. To tell them, we know the game you're playing and we will oppose you, is the mistake. We have to oppose their agents within India who are playing the game with them and giving them the means to implement their agenda. So the correct position should be, we will oppose all those who align with US State Department interests and against India's national interests, wherever they may be, particularly in India. Because nobody from outside can harm you unless they have some support within, isn't it? So this should have been the focus and not the US State Department, which, well, you know what it does, not a big story, it's not something new, and they will continue to do it. Self-interest. But here is, what about our national interest? Who is standing for it and who is not? And those who are not, expose them. They are the real enemies. And this should have been the messaging. So I'm just giving an example of how this worked. And I give another example of how national interest has been compromised. Kangana Ranaut, film actress, has come out with her movie on Indira Gandhi titled Emergency. Of course, she exposes Indira Gandhi signing the emergency, which was anti-democratic values. And it ends with her assassination, which was done by a terrorist group from Punjab. I'm not saying done by a Sikh. It was done by a terrorist group from Punjab. Okay, They might have been born Sikh, they did not follow the Sikh teachings. They're terrorist ideology. Understand, it's a radical ideology. Who kills her? Now, this is historical fact. There's nothing new. There's no exaggeration. There's no slanting as has been done in the IC 214 hijack movie, which is done by Netflix, where it is slanted and Islamic ideology leaders have been presented as Hindu leaders. So that the whole thing is shown as a Hindu terrorist operation when it was actually an Islamic terror operation with the ISI Pakistan. And so that's the kind of distortion you find. Here there's no distortion. It's straightforward historical facts. And it's blocked. Why? The entire toolkit is in operation now to block this. So observe the toolkit, observe who stands up, observe who's shouting, observe how the media responds. And here you get an idea of how they operate and how they gang up together to manipulate through the media. Kangana Ranaut made a very interesting observation. She said, this is the price that she has to pay for awakening the sleeping nation. I put a link to that also. And this is a fact. That the people are asleep, that's why this toolkit operates. And my point in going in detail on all these things is precisely to provoke us to start thinking, to start questioning, and to wake up. There's a very interesting observation which was made by some post on Twitter, X, which Elon Musk retweeted, saying, interesting observation. I don't remember the exact text now. Unfortunately, I've saved it, but I didn't bring it up now. Where somebody says that men who have strong testosterone levels tend to be more independent in their thought. They are not easily biased and swayed by public opinion or pressures from outside, and particularly this kind of media manipulation. And therefore, such men should be put in positions of power to take decisions for the good of the nation. Now, the idea here is that people who think independently and are not swayed and cannot be brought under pressure from media or sentimental or other interests and pressures should be the decision makers. This is the core idea. Of course, the original person who posted it put it in the vocabulary of men and testosterone. Fine. The point Elon Musk made was, it's an interesting idea, not about men, not about testosterone, but the idea of independent thought being the criteria for national leaders. And the entire media ganged up against him saying, oh, masochist, etc. and male chauvinist and all those terms were put against him. But this point I would like to highlight. It's not about testosterone. It's not about men. It's about what Sri Aurobindo wrote, which we read last time, the need for independent thinking. That we have to stop being swayed by what we are told and think for ourselves. This is really the key. And the true leaders are those who can stand back from the media pressure or other hypnosis and think for themselves and take decisions which are for the good of the nation. And then be able to articulate and justify it. And then be able to engage in discourse. And even to debate if needed, and if there are differences of opinion, incorporate a better strategy that they might have missed, if such exists. So, in principle, you get the point. The need of the hour is for people to wake up and start thinking for themselves. I come to one more news item which came up. I'm going rapidly through all these so that you get a big picture of things which have happened and also get a sense of how to read through appearances. Something very interesting happened. A company which is involved in spying through your mobile phones came out with a statement. It's a marketing firm. Came out with a statement that yes, actually their phones listen in when you are talking. So here's a phone sitting on your table. And while it's sitting here and you're speaking, everything you're speaking is being registered by their software inside your telephone. So if you say at that point, oh, I think I'm going to have a cheese pizza, it picks it up, gives you an ad within seconds for a cheese pizza locally, etc. And people have seen this happen. So everyone suspected. Of course, it was evident. But so far, everybody denied. Who denied? Apple denied. Facebook denied. All these social media companies denied it. The marketing firm, which is not them directly, but with whom they have a tie-up, now came out and declared that, yes, we actually do it. Not only this, I think they said they have 470 ways of monitoring you, and using those 470 ways, they profile you and decide what to market you with. Now, the question I'm asking is, why did they reveal it now? They didn't need to. All these years they've lied to you. Why did they reveal it now? I will answer shortly, but these are the questions you have to ask when you read. Why now? And they're saying it openly. Nobody has even threatened them. They came out. What was Facebook's response, interestingly? Facebook didn't say, oh, we cut off all connections with them. We are surprised. We didn't know this was happening. They didn't say that. What did they say? Oh, we have to see if they have compromised our terms of agreement with them. We have to study the legal terms of agreement we have signed with them. What does that mean? Facebook is not saying, oh, we didn't know. Facebook is not saying it is wrong. They are just saying, if this was not part of the terms of agreement, then we will have to take action. Otherwise, right now we have to study. And how long? Several days have passed. They're still studying and they will not come up again. That was just an initial response to gaslight you, to lie to you, to deceive you, and make the problem go away. And once you forget, they continue exactly what they were doing. And if 5 years from now, they are taken to jail or threatened to go to jail, they will say, but we always told you it was not hidden. It was always available. We had informed you at that time. What's new? It was part of the terms of and conditions that you signed when you took up our software. You can't put us in jail. You see how it works. So the game is very skillfully played and the media is fully complicit. The duplicity goes all the way, not only in the media, in the heads of Facebook, in the heads of the marketing companies, in the heads of all those who have lied to you, including your own politicians. So why did they come out now? And I'm going to link it to something else which happened. Mark Zuckerberg suddenly phoned up Donald Trump and apologized. For what? During the 2020 elections, which Biden won, supposedly, there are people who dispute. We won't get into that now. Mark Zuckerberg had spent $400 million. It was called Zuck Bucks. $400 million to promote fair elections, which money was given to leftist organizations, which used it, in fact, to influence the elections. So Zuckerberg apologizes to Trump and says, I didn't realize that it would be used to sway the elections against you. And I'm sorry. Why is he saying this? So a week later, I think just a few days ago now, Trump's new book came out, in which he says Mark Zuckerberg will go to jail if it is proved that he influenced the elections. Zuckerberg knew about it before the book was out. More seriously, and this is a point I'm getting to, on their control system, they know exactly who's going to vote for whom. And I've told you this before. Because by monitoring you, they know exactly who you're going to vote for and who is on the fence. And they focus on swinging those on the fence. They have seen a massive wave for Trump. They already know it. They will do everything to ensure Trump loses. But when they see this massive wave happening, in case Trump comes to power, they don't want to be on his bad books. So they start all this. And so this marketing firm also announces, oh, we have been monitoring. Now we have declared it. We are not hiding. We are not lying to you. It's all in the open. So when the investigation starts, they'll say, oh, we did our part. We didn't hide. We didn't lie. So something is shifting in the atmosphere. The cabal is afraid, seriously afraid of Trump's overwhelming support, which is also interesting because you are being told that Kamala Harris actually leads Trump by a few points all over the swing states. And Kamala Harris then comes out with a statement, don't pay attention to the polls. And don't pay too much attention to the polls. What does she mean? Why is she saying that? She's afraid that if you keep lying, which they are lying, then people will not worry. They will go back to sleep thinking, oh, she's going to win anyway and not make the effort needed. The fact is, all these polls are rigged. They're intended to sway your opinion because you will tend to go with whoever seems to be the winning party. That's the game they play. But they don't even dare to lie too much. So if they say that she's leading by 2 or 3% points, then very likely she's lagging by about 10% points. The swing often is of 10%, and that's considered acceptable. So the pollsters will lie to you, and when you get results which are very different, as we saw with Modi's, They always said Modi would lose, and finally, when he won by large margin, it was 10 to 20%. They said, yes, but that's a swing which is acceptable. This time, interestingly, it went the other way, and we have discussed the reasons why. But I come to this, very important developments taking place in the USA now. And other things which happened, which I'll go a little bit into detail now so that you get a picture of what has been happening behind the scenes. So the first attempt was, remember when it's the same toolkit. It's the same toolkit operating within the USA, which happened in Bangladesh, which happened in Ukraine, in many of the East European countries, which happened in African countries, which actually halfway happened in France also in the recent elections, which is implemented in India right now, still ongoing with partial success during elections and now continuing. Exact same toolkit operating in the US with some minor variations. So what happened first in the US is they attempted to remove Trump by legal means by weaponizing the Department of Justice against him by filing so many criminal cases. Now, I'm saying this openly now because I put a link here that shows you the head of the US Department of Justice speaking to an undercover operative, saying that this is the game, that this is just being done to damage his name and to blame Trump for being a convict, and with the image of a convict to reduce the number of his supporters. This is the game, and he says it openly. Do look at that. Those links are very important. And because that link is there, now we can speak about it openly. Till now, of course, it was always in the domain of discussion. Second, what they did, they filed so many criminal cases. Second thing they did, they passed massive fines. One of them, I think, was nearly $500 million that he has to pay to bankrupt him. The same game they played on Elon Musk also, to bankrupt. So the idea was to bankrupt him financially and to spoil his name so that people would not vote for him. Same game they played with Hasina, same game they played with Modi. I'm showing it's the same pattern. When this did not work too well, the second attempt at a coup, this is attempt at a coup, it's election interference. The second attempt at a coup was the selection of Biden as Democratic Party nominee. Now, here's the interesting thing. Normally, what happens is, within the party, there is a selection that is made. Anybody can stand, and then there's a selection, and they go through multiple levels until finally you have a nomination. Trump skipped it. He simply said, I will not waste time with the others. I know my position. But finally, he joined at the last stage, and obviously, he was the party favorite, which was not the case with Biden. So what they did was they actually forced Biden up and prevented this selection process. And there are many who were upset about it, including Gavin Newsom. I'm coming to the next part of the story. When Biden was not playing ball, and it was very obvious that you had to cover a lot for his condition of dementia, and it's been going on for 4 years. The media lied to you for 4 years, saying he was absolutely healthy and well. When finally it was exposed, and it became obvious when he had the debate with Trump, they dumped him. First step before dumping him, the attempt was to remove Trump by assassination. When that failed, they removed Biden and put Kamala Harris. Now, this part is interesting again. If Biden drops out for whatever reason, they should again go back to the normal process of electing the best person from the party. Instead, Biden selects Kamala Harris and says, she's going to take my place. Now, this is never done before. Kamala Harris has never won any process of selection in the Democratic Party. When she did run 4 years ago, she got thrown out. If you remember, at that point, it was she got thrown out because she was exposed by Tulsi Gabbard at the very first level. I don't think she ever crossed even 15% of the votes, if I remember right. But it's a very small number. So now Biden props her up as the next nominee. And it was interesting to watch. I've not put all the links, but you can go back. I've saved them all so I can justify everything. But I don't want to put too many links unnecessarily. But what happened then was, when they suddenly announced Biden has stepped down, for days before, Biden was saying, I will not step down. I'm strong enough. I'm capable enough. And media propped it up. He's good. He's capable. Trust him. Suddenly, he steps down overnight. And now media says, yes, it's better he steps down for the good of the party. You see how the media lies to you, or the people controlling behind just play you for a fool. And then they prop up Kamala Harris. And she will be the best. She is the best. She has done so much. And the media went gaga. She's the best person. She will beat Trump. She has done such wonderful things. They could not list anything wonderful she has done in her entire career. Interesting. But they kept saying she has done so much for the poor, for the downtrodden, for the immigrants, etc. But not one thing they could specify. So, but interestingly, when that happened, the media headlines were like this. Biden steps down, Kamala Harris is selected, but Obama has not yet stated his position. You'll see that many headlines, variations of this. Obama has not yet supported her. And there was one which said, Pelosi and Obama have not supported her. And this stayed for nearly 1 week. Why? And I want you to understand the dynamics within the Democratic Party. So there are groups within them. And Biden was under pressure from the Obama group. And there's the Clinton group. So these were broadly 3 groups. Actually, Biden was part of the Obama group. He was propped up from the Obama group. And when at some point he refused to follow and toe their line, and they saw that they were losing because they're monitoring through the social media, they saw they were losing, they wanted to replace him, and he refused to step down. That's when they kind of evicted him and forced him to go to the debate and expose himself. At which point, instead of allowing them to pick the next nominee, he picked Kamala Harris as against Obama's preferred nominee, which was Michelle Obama. So the result was again a split within the group, but they didn't have a voice. They could not publicly come out and say, no, we don't want her, we want Michelle. So they held back, controlling the media to tell you that yes, although Kamala is wonderful, she does not yet have the acceptance and support of Obama's and of Pelosi, Nancy Pelosi. So this was a coup, so to say, done by the Biden camp against Obama camp. They waited for a week, and then some kind of an internal agreement was made, after which Obama and Michelle, Barack and Michelle Obama, on the stage together declared their support for her and said that she will make a wonderful president. Now, this was also a planned thing. Why would Michelle her opinion matter? Why would Obama's opinion matter? All the past presidents go to sleep. They literally walk off the public space. Nobody makes public statements. That's the convention in the US and generally everywhere in the world. Why is Obama required to back Kamala Harris? And this was never asked in the media because the media was playing you royally. So there's one link I wanted to put up. I have missed that. Gavin Newsom actually came up recently with a statement saying, I have to say that Kamala Harris is the best nominee. And I have to say this even though I don't believe it, because that's what the party demands me to say. He was very upset because he wanted to be a nominee. He wanted to stand for president. And there were others who would have got far higher numbers, who would have been far better even as opponents to Trump. And Trump said it's actually easier to defeat Kamala because actually she has nothing and she's not very smart. So it's very easy to defeat her. So there are attempts now being made. Kamala is demanding certain requirements on Trump's side to have a debate. And the requirements are changed repeatedly. There's a link I could have put for that. But repeatedly changing requirements to force Trump to back down. So that he will say, no, we will not have a debate on these terms. And then they'll say, see, Trump chickened out, he's afraid. But you watch carefully how Kamala Harris is protected by the media. They will never ask her a difficult question. They will never ask her a complex foreign relations question. They will never ask strategic questions, just as they did with Biden. The question the media would ask him, what is your favorite ice cream? They'll never ask that to Trump. They'll ask him a controversial question and use any answer he gives against him. But they played soft with Biden. They play soft with Kamala. They protect her from having any open discussion with any public. It's always reading out prepared text. So she says all the platitudes, but nothing distinctive. Every statement she has made on policy has been proved to be contrary to statements she has made in the past. You'll see videos people have compiled. So she said she was against fracking, and now she says she is for fracking. Obviously, you can't have both at the same time. So all this is to show that there is an internal party struggle. and they bypassed the normal election process within the party to select the presidential nominee. But the game is not over, as far as I understand. And it's always risky to speak of the future, but very likely I expect either Kamala will be exposed during a debate with Trump, and then they will replace her with Michelle at the last minute. Or there'll be a different arrangement. But this idea is, and the strategy used, is put a surprise candidate at the last minute who does not have then to debate or anything, and against whom you have nothing negative ever because there's no public position ever. Michelle Obama is perfect for that. And then people just vote without thinking, because here's a fresh face, no controversies, no past statements. You want a woman, you want a black against Trump, who is a man and who's white. And it plays into that agenda. So I expect something like this to happen. It's always risky to say these things in advance, but it's also possible the cabal plays its game, has many options simultaneously, including monkeypox as an option to activate whenever required. But they keep all their irons hot. Depending on how things are going, they may activate one or other options. So this was to give a broad picture of the complexities of series of small but silent coups that have taken place within the US, and the same toolkit operating within the media. There's one more link I have put, which is from the 2020 elections, which is a sworn testimony of Maria Zack of how the Italian military and cabal operatives were used to influence the US elections. And this is done under sworn testimony. And so it's a very important link, and it's presented in the Congress. So take a look at that also for those who are interested. But the reality is a lot of this interference is done from outside. So there were, for example, the vote counting machines where they had to put sheets of paper and scan them. All these were open to the internet, and they had IP addresses from China, from Germany, and from Italy, and one particularly from Spain, which were logged in as connecting to these machines. And nobody to this day has explained why. And what were they doing? Why were they even open to the internet? So this is one of the strange things in the US, that you use voting machines which are connected to the internet and owned by a private company, and nobody is accountable for this. The second strange thing in the US is that you do not need an ID to vote. You need an ID to buy alcohol, to buy cigarettes, to drive, but you don't need an ID to vote. And that is so strange. And the reason given is supposedly that there are many Native Americans who would not have an ID because they don't have a fixed address, and so they would lose out on the ability to vote. Well, make an exception for them, but they would have a national identity of some kind, use that. There are many counters to such an argument, but this is one of the strange things. Of course, it is fully used by the illegal immigrants to register themselves and then vote. So I've sent one more link. Maricopa County is one of the key swing counties. It's not even swing state, swing county in the election. And last time it was one of the keys which tilted things in favor of Biden. And in Maricopa County, they have found that there were some, I think, 35,000 illegal immigrants who have been registered as voters. And I've put a link to that also. And you must keep in mind that in the last 4 years under Joe Biden, 15 million illegal immigrants have walked into the US, and most of them have vanished. Nobody knows where, untracked. What do they do? Why do they come? How they will tilt the elections is your guess as good as anyone. What is one of the interesting consequences of Tulsi Gabbard having exposed Kamala and literally thrown her out of the race 4 years ago is Kamala always held a grouch against her, and they have put Tulsi Gabbard and her husband on an internal secret terror watch list. Now, this gives you an idea of the nature of the cabal operations for the future. Vengeance, and they put you on a terrorist watch list. You are harassed, no end. You're not allowed to travel internally within your own country. I put a link about that. Do take a look. And these are all showing you directions of influence, of decline of truthfulness, genuineness of intention, and freedom of speech by the government itself. and the government institutions, Department of Justice and others, and internal security, to take revenge on those who are, so to say, personally speaking up too freely or have criticized you when you are in power. And it gives you an idea of the future state that is intended by the one world government across the world. And if this can happen in the US now, be sure it will happen everywhere in the world in a very short time. The agenda that the World Economic Forum has set is for 2030 to have completed whatever their goals for unifying the world under one world government is. And RFK Jr. came out with a statement saying he was refused Secret Service protection. Now, any presidential candidate is given Secret Service protection from so many days out, typically 200 days before elections. Obama was given 500 days before elections. That's what he says, I don't know. And he was refused. Trump was refused increase of his protection, and the result was the assassination attempt. And all this again is to show you that something is seriously wrong in the way the state has been weaponized against its own citizens and against those who are standing for elections. The state is against them. The state powers are used to prevent the election to prevent free and fair elections. And this is extremely dangerous. And there is one New York Times writer which referred to the US Constitution as a dangerous document. Elon Musk tweeted that and criticized this writer. So I'm showing you the direction in which things are moving in the US, and it's a matter of extreme concern even. At the same time, the last bastion of free speech on scale, of course, there are smaller pockets like gab.com and a few others, but on free speech on a large scale is Twitter or X under control of Elon Musk. So naturally, this is anathema to the one world government, and they want to block this in every way possible. And you will see in the last 2 or 3 months the direction this has moved. In Brazil, they actually locked down Starlink accounts, Starlink funds. They wanted, I think they started banning or they were about to ban Twitter. And that was used as a test case for how a state could go against Twitter. And you will see a news item which appeared 2 or 3 days ago, which says, advertisers plan to withdraw from X or Twitter in record numbers next year because they have contracts already. They can't withdraw immediately, but they want to withdraw in record numbers. Now, this is being promoted by CNN. I've put the link. Why? Because by bringing up this as a danger sign, oh, there's something wrong with Twitter, it's going to sink. They go to other smaller advertisers. The big ones are cabal controlled. They go to smaller ones and say, now you don't put your money there because it might sink, it won't last. So the messaging is that Elon Musk will not be able to support X. It's going to sink because all the big advertisers are pulling out. And of course, they tried this before also. We will see how Elon responds. But the intention is to do this. But if that fails, then they will ban X from all the countries. And you see an article by The Guardian, which is titled, Elon Musk is out of control. Here is how to rein him in. I've put the link. I don't think it's worth reading the article. The title is what I am pointing to. Elon Musk is out of control. And I will ask, whose control? He's out of cabal control. And so, how do you rein him in? To whom? To what? To cabal agenda. And of course, squeeze him financially. That's the way forward for them. And there was one more article, and this is again from The Guardian. And it's interesting, when you actually open the page on The Guardian, they will tell you, that I'm reading here, bad actors spreading disinformation online to fuel intolerance. This is what we are up against. Teams of lawyers from the rich and powerful trying to stop us publishing stories they don't want you to see. Lobby groups with opaque funding who are determined to undermine facts about the climate emergency and other established science. Authoritarian states with no regard for the freedom of the press. But we have something powerful on our side. We have got you, so pay us money. Basically, I'm shortening the rest of it. But you see the way, the duplicity of the statement. We are here for truth. We are here for stopping you from being misinformed and stopping you from being intolerant. And what's the headline? I'm going to read. This is from their one of their star writers. Don't rejoice yet. Elon Musk and his tech brothers in arms are winning the global battle for the truth. Global battle for the truth is being won by Elon Musk and his brothers in arms. Who is his brothers in arms, supposedly? It is the founder of Telegram. Again, a free speech base, isn't it? So you are ganging up against free speech for the global battle for the truth. Isn't that amazing? And this is the Guardian. The duplicity. And if you don't stop to think and put these contradictions in front of you and face the fact that they are blatantly lying to you, that they're posturing, they're not serious about the truth, you will never understand what's really happening. And my intention in exposing all this is precisely to bring you to that point where you see through this game and will not be affected. And let me give you one last thing. Times magazine, which used to be, again, a respected magazine, put a list of 100 artificial intelligence influencers of the world. They had pictures, they had articles about each, summarizing. It did not include Elon Musk. Elon Musk is one of the founders of OpenAI. He broke away when OpenAI stopped being open and became closed and was practically bought up by Microsoft. So he broke away because he wanted OpenAI truly to be open and verifiable by the public, accessible to the public, so there are no hidden games behind the scenes, not manipulated, perverted, and twisted AI. That's why he broke away and formed his own AI. And his AI is the most advanced, the world's largest today. There's actually an article which appeared in a technical journal barely a week back, maybe 4 days ago, which said that the others, including Facebook and OpenAI, are afraid of Elon Musk's AI engine because it's twice as big as the biggest of the rivals. Now, if this be true, how is it Times list does not even mention Elon Musk among its 100 AI influencers? Why? They want to erase him. This is the cancel culture, the mentality of cancellation of anybody who does not toe the cabal line and the one world government line. Again, I'm showing this to you. This is the reality of the future that they are creating. He's cancelled. They will behave as if he doesn't exist. Interestingly, who is in it? Scarlett Johansson, who's a film actress. What did she do for AI? Nothing. Oh, she acted in a movie where her voice was used as the voice of an AI. That's about it. Of course, she's celebrated here. Why? Because she put a court case against OpenAI for using her voice, which they did not. So she actually lost the case, but they praise her for having put a court case to protect her identity. No, that's not a good reason. She's done nothing for AI. A second name, which is interesting, Anil Kapoor, from India, from Bollywood. What has this man got to do with AI? He's a okay, medium grade actor. Why is his name in Time magazine as influencers for AI? Well, he put a case for his voice and his image to not be used by AI. And nobody's interested in using his voice and image, but he put a case again anyway, and he won a case, some trivial thing. That's not important. Why would you put such a man in the list of 100 and not Elon Musk, who's actually changed world's AI? Why? And you look again as his Twitter feed, and you'll find him holding a mobile phone, covering his left eye, and it's the eye of Osiris, signaling of the cabal satanic participants. He has joined a club of a certain interest group. He gives those signalings, and he is rewarded with this. That's how the system works. Take a look if you want. The one eye cabal signal, you know what it is. I don't want to show it here. So it shows you the trend of things moving. And AI is one of the most dangerous, the most powerful tools being used right now to influence you through your mobile phones, through your Twitter feeds, through the media, etc. Everywhere you see this consistent duplicity. And this was my point, to show you all this in a way that is so obvious that you should be able to see through. And I've shown you largely things which have happened in the last 1 week, 2 weeks at most. When you read the news, look at things in this way. Ask the difficult questions. What's behind this? Whose interest does it promote? What is it ignoring? What it is not telling you? And who would be protected by that? And you start seeing through the game. So I suppose I had one more point to make, which was a bit distressing. I saw a news item that Geo Financial Services Limited has entered into partnership with BlackRock. BlackRock is this gigantic behemoth of the cabal company, which owns everything, everywhere, and all media everywhere, at least significantly. They get into more than 10% shareholding everywhere, by which no policy can be taken without their approval. They're buying up land everywhere. They're buying up farming land, housing properties everywhere. It's one of those gigantic behemoths which swings $10 trillion, and they control the media companies. So what has happened is, in time, what was the CIA or the cabal within the CIA, which was controlling things, have shifted the control center into a company. The result is, now you can say, oh, the CIA is not involved. It's just a company doing its thing. The same reason that the DARPA US military created Facebook. They used to have LifeLog. I've spoken about this before. They shut down LifeLog, started Facebook, transferred the entire team with Mark Zuckerberg as the front on the same day. Their plan was to document every human being on Earth and his daily life, so it was called LifeLog. They became Facebook, in which the strategy was to get you to willingly document yourself. And they've won. But it's finally a military operation, but under the guise of a private company. One of the big questions I had asked myself when Google came out with Google Maps, I said, how do they overnight have all the maps of the world? And it turned out they had made an agreement with the US military. I think it was DARPA or I don't know which agency, which these were military maps of the United States military mapping the entire world, which now they made accessible to Google. And I asked myself this question, why would they do that? They're revealing their secret. The game was far more skillful. And I didn't see at that time, I didn't realize how useful it would be. By doing this tie-up, now Google becomes the public front, private company, let's say. So you cannot question, they can do what they like. They make you sign an agreement. Unlike a government, which has to give you certain rights, they don't have to give you rights. They can take away your rights. But now they become a front for the military. And all the details you're putting on the maps, you're marking yourself. You have a business, you put your business there, you put your hours, you put your locations, is all going back to the US military computers mapping system. So now the US, without spending a dime, with you paying them, has got the world's most advanced maps down to every single house number and images of every house from above, from the side, from the road, and with all information that you need, which can easily be correlated to your mobile phone's Wi-Fi signal, and they know exactly who you are, where you are, whom you are meeting, down to the detail. Because when you went to your friend's house and you connected to his Wi-Fi signal, or your GPS now synchronized with that location, they know you are meeting them there. And if at that point they're listening to your speech, they're monitoring what you're talking about, and with AI easily profiling the nature of your relationship with your friend. And it's all done quietly behind the scene, silently. Every human being has been mapped down to this detail, and their relationships mapped out. And your beliefs and your way of thinking and your potential capacities, etc., mapped out with profiling software with AI. And then the AI now operates on you to start to modify, swing, influence your thinking, and so on. Do you understand the nature of the one world government that Sri Aurobindo warned us about? Do you see how insidious and dangerous this is? Do you see what is at stake for the future of humanity and the freedom of thought of humanity? And freedom of speech, obviously. Go back to the discussion we had right at the beginning of this series on current affairs, where I read from that chapter and elaborated on some of the points, and understand what the game is up and what we are up against. And then I come back to this quotation from Sri Aurobindo when he is asked, surely the divine will help Bengal. Sri Aurobindo's response, yes, if Bengal seeks the divine. And remember the mother's warning, I hope it will not be through one of those dark nights of civilization that we have to pass through. And then her message, if only humanity would consent to change. You don't even have to worry about the nature of the change because the help will be there. You have to only accept that you will grow and change in consciousness. And the help is there already. The enormous pressure of a supramental consciousness working in the atmosphere. It needs your consent for a more direct working within you to change you, to awaken you. And it is a fact of experience among all of us. And I hope each one of you can also confirm this in your own life, that every time that you have accepted and opened yourself and accepted to grow, there has been a rapidity of growth in your own consciousness and your spiritual life. So I will quickly scan through the chat box, but I won't take up everything. We'll keep the rest for later. Yes, so Anupam, peace and protest are self-contradictory. Yes, protest necessarily is not always a demonstration of peace, but you can have a protest which is done peacefully. It can be done as a protest which is not violent, it is not destructive. As you know, most of the protests that you see organized by the opposition parties in India, they will go around looting, breaking buses, looting properties. You see this again in the United States in the Black Lives Matter protests where they burnt businesses and looted them. That's the violence which is not necessary for a protest. A protest can be done in different ways. We did one in the ashram also when this book came out, abusing Sri Aurobindo, and had the support of the management. We did what we called a silent protest. All those of us who stood for this, for Sri Aurobindo, we sat down, in front of the management's office, we meditated, we held up placards saying, we will not accept this. It was done in silence. And a paper was given to them saying this is not acceptable. And for this Kumudban at that time, mother's personal attendant who was looking after the mother's room, she herself assisted. She brought from upstairs, from the mother's room, the plastic for us to sit, the mats for us to sit, brought special prasad from the mother's room, which was distributed to all of us. We had one person there inside the system who stood for it. They hated her. They did everything to harm her. And when she passed away, they were very, very nasty to her body also. So yes, it can be done. And freedom without bloodshed, Anupam is asking, unfortunately, it depends. Unfortunately, there are situations where freedom has to be won at great personal cost, as you see for India's freedom, as you see for Bangladesh's freedom, as you see for most nations. In taking birth as a nation, there was always a tragic and sometimes bloody passage. But it need not be so. It need not be, but when the opposition is too extreme, sometimes that becomes inevitable. And this is the point the mother made also about this passage through the darkness of civilization. Will this passage and the freedom of humanity and its spiritual awakening happen without needing too much suffering? And I include bloodshed as part of the suffering, because there are other forms of suffering also. And if you have won your freedom through much suffering, including bloodshed, do you really value it? And if you don't deserve it. This was a statement made by Ronald Reagan. He said the freedom of a nation is only one generation away from being lost. Because if a generation is brought up without knowing the sacrifices of their ancestors, they don't value the freedom, they will fritter it away, as is being done by the masses today. Among the young, some are awake, but the much larger amount is in this hypnotic drowse of the social media hypnosis. And Ronald Reagan's statement is very, very important. In the United States, the generations today do not even know a thing about what is the US Constitution, how the US freedom was won, the sacrifice of its founders, why the Constitution was designed the way it was, the importance of free speech. All this has been erased. In fact, they've been taught the opposite. The same happened in India. We are taught through our textbooks. Gandhiji sat one day and went on a fast and the British went away. We won our freedom by going on fast. Absolute balderdash, falsehood. It was through much struggle. Gandhiji delayed the freedom with his fasts and his demonstrations and his fake pacifism. It was because of the sacrifices of those who fought that the British were compelled to leave. And it was not because of Gandhi. He delayed it. In fact, he caused the partition. He caused so much more suffering. This is the reality. And today we have to be able to speak about it, even if it's inconvenient for certain political interests. And the evidence is there. It's all there. But the children have not been taught this. They don't even know the facts. of how India was won. So this is an unfortunate part of it. Well, it is to be hoped that it will not be through bloodshed, but suffering is unavoidable when there is a strong opposition against freedom. And a lot depends then on who is willing to do what in order to protect their freedom. If we can protect what we have got, we may not need to go through bloodshed. We may just need to protect and strengthen and gradually increase what is protected. Yes. Yes, and there are many other observations. Manhosh has made an interesting observation. It has that the rape is often paired with murder because the violator is an antisocial, disordered personality, and it's not the degree of punishment which will make a difference to the rape itself. And exactly, that's the point. And these are psychological perspectives which need to be brought into any system of punishment. So, yes, I'm glad you brought this up. Bruno's comment, I think I have already given you a perspective of what is happening in society. Society is being led by this power of mass media into a drowse of hypnosis. This is the real risk. Trinetra is asking, what can citizens do if they believe their Supreme Court is corrupt? That's the difficult part. When there is a hijack, you can do nothing, because the system has been hijacked by them. If you try to break the system, it will be used against you. If you try to change the system from within, the system operates to block you from going up the chain. How Modi came to power is in fact one of the great stories. He did not come to power initially by an election process. He came to power as a chief minister of Gujarat when the previous elected chief minister was found to be too corrupt, was asked to step down, and the RSS selected Modi as a clean person who had competence to run a state. And he made the change. You had to somehow bypass the system's mechanism of selection to make a breakthrough. Now that he has got to the top, if he does not make the change from the top, it will be a missed opportunity. How can this be done? And I've suggested this before. Of course, the selection of judges, they will say they want their independence. No, we have to, just as the judges demanded that selection of chief election commissioner should involve judiciary, well, selection of judiciary should involve others. But the suggestion I have made is bring back the original system that we had inherited from the British of having this jury system. The jury represents the villagers. You see, the way it works, when you want true justice, you can't have one man's opinion or one book which is applied indiscriminately based on some rules. You have to look at the situation. And the people around who know the person, who know the victim, who know the circumstances are often the best. So the advantage of the jury system is that you're basically bringing the village, artificially now, but it's the village now sitting down and thinking about this and saying, okay, what do we do? And there's a humane element. You cannot corrupt the whole thing. At least not easily. You can, of course, corrupt anything, but not easily because there are too many people and one corrupt judge won't do. He cannot do his thing. Second, you cannot keep postponing, as is happening already. You can see with the Supreme Court cases. They keep postponing, and that's how they give time to the chief minister and wait for the people's anger to die down. Eventually, it will die down. You can't do that because you have to organize with a jury which has left behind their work and is sitting there. You have to have day-to-day hearings. You see the pace at which the cases were completed against Trump in the United States, or for that matter, anywhere where there is a jury. It moves so fast. And the judges don't like it because they cannot keep delaying and they will not make money in the process. And the lawyers also don't like, they won't make money per hearing. So there are ways, but it needs at this point a systemic change because the system was constructed by the British for exploitation of the people. When India became free, the system we inherited was a top-down organized system to exploit the people of India. Therefore, the most powerful person on the grassroots was the collector. His job was to collect taxes. Their only interest was how do you collect money and kill local industries and make you buyer for their industries. That's all. When they went away, we inherited the system. Nehru and Gandhi took the system as it is, continued the exploitation of the Indian people. This has not changed. This needs to be changed. It has to be done. But again, it can be done only from the top. The last chance we have is with Modi. I do not know what will happen after. If this chance is missed, it will be, again, a very difficult passage, waiting for someone else to come to that position. Tutun says, Yes, Chief Justice P.N. Bhagwati was the most honest and clean, one of the greatest Chief Justices of India. I'm taking time to read this because I knew the man. He would say Sri Krishna would write judgments through him as an instrument. Yes, he was an exceptional devotee, and the entire family, because I've known them, deeply committed. And he actually corrected so many distortions within the constitution. So once I had sat down and I told him this, that we have also the record of maximum number of conflict of constitutional crisis, where one part of the constitution contradicts another part. Then he told me very proudly, we have healed all that. During my tenure, we have corrected all those distortions. He was very proud of it. And I believe at that time, because he was a devotee of Sri Krishna, was a very religious man. And it was in his family that this example I learned from. It was not him, but one of his brothers. They were fighting for India's freedom. And the father was very strict about using money correctly. Any money you've raised during the freedom struggle should be used only for the thing for which it is raised. So it so happened that one of the boys, a little money was left after using, and on some impulse of desire, he bought some sweet for himself. He came back, and his father, of course, he was afraid his father would scold him. But as it turned out, he came back, he fell, broke his tooth, had to go to a dentist, and had to pay the exact amount that he had taken. And so it was for him a lesson. And I heard some of these stories from them. And the father, of course, highlighted the lesson. So yes, we have had exceptional people. And unfortunately, now the situation has changed. So Revati says, yes, the NCERT textbooks have been changed. There is a chapter on Bharat which starts with the Sri Aurobindo's quote. This brought great joy. My problem with textbook change is that education is not about textbooks. Yes, the textbooks were corrupt. They were perverse. They were celebrating the conquest of India and the destruction of India. Unfortunately, it was one of the most painful things to read those. Yes, some of that has been changed. Tomorrow, if the government changes, they will come back and put back their textbooks. Change of textbook in itself means nothing. What about the mind of the children? Are you still going to have them gorge and mug up things, or will there be some creativity and learning through various methods of play, of creative learning? The pedagogy, the methodology of teaching has not been changed. This is one of the great failures of the Modi government. Even though, by the way, Modi, while he was Chief Minister of Gujarat, he had Kirit Joshi as his chief advisor for his education, and under him they started what was called Children's University with innovative education. They passed a special law to promote innovative schools. All this happened under Modi, so he understands what can be done. But that stayed in Gujarat. Why can't this be done on scale in India, or a variant of this? And unfortunately, from what I understand, he does not have competent people in the educational sphere to make the necessary changes. So I think that's the only excuse I can give on his behalf. But at the end of the day, I will hold him responsible, because we have competent people in India. And if he has not found them, that is failure of his team, his government. But this needs to be done while the chance is there. As you can see, the toolkit is in operation. They may succeed in toppling Modi. If that happens, it will take a much longer time to come back to any such opportunity in the future. Arnab Goswami is doing great work. Sumana says yes, and I would recommend that do follow him. But as I said, he has his own limitations. He's blaming State Department. No, they are not our enemy. Our enemy are the people within India who are aligning with foreign interests to subvert Indian interests. And this is across many kinds of interests. Okay, so there are a few questions which are of a broader context and different topic, which I will take up next time. I think for now, I wanted to bring this forward to you, show you the complexity and the compulsions and the duplicity so prevalent everywhere, so that you can see through it. This is the intention. And I would like that wherever you can, spread also, make others aware. Explain to people what is happening, why it's happening, to the extent they're willing to listen. Share some of the links if you find them helpful for your awakening, put them out. But take small steps in your own area to wake up people and to break out of the hypnosis. One of the things we must do with the youngsters is break them free from the social media hypnosis. Give them more interesting things to do, to learn, to grow, to develop their intelligence and their creativity. And we should encourage them, make them conscious of how harmful that is. Make them aware by self-observation what happens when they watch social media for 2 hours or when they do something creative as an activity, and help to make this transition. For this, Sri Aurobindo and the mother worked. They created the school at the Sri Aurobindo ashram. Sri Aurobindo taught or wrote about the new educational system and did everything possible to put it into implementation. It's for us now to take the work forward in whichever area we can influence. So let's take this as our theme for concentration today and work for the awakening of all humanity, and each one within their nation for the awakening of their nation. Make your nation great, your civilizational values, higher values great. Cut through the deception, duplicity, and lies, and the need to tell lies. And stand for those who speak the truth and do what is right. Do not let them down. All this is absolutely essential. Let's concentrate and invoke the divine help so that we may do the right thing, each one in our own spaces.